Open your ears and lube up your butthole. It's time for the What Do We Call It podcast. Now, here's your host. It's Jmann. Welcome to the What Do We Call It podcast. I'm Jmann, and it's just me. And I want to talk about this concept that kind of came up in a conversation with somebody semi-recently. They were discussing with their supervisor about another new employee. And the conversation went something like, they're struggling, and I'm trying to help them, but it's just not clicking. And the supervisor said something to the effect of, well, they got to sink or swim on their own. Which I guess to some extent when you're an adult makes sense. Now, when I was a social worker, I hadn't had that background before professionally. And I went in, and they kind of showed me some of the ropes. But what I was told from other coworkers is, you got lucky, because other people that got hired before you, they just threw them into the deep end, and if they figured it out, they figured it out, and if not, they let them go or waited for them to get so fed up they quit. And I just think to myself, real leaders lead. They boost every employee. They try to strengthen every link in the chain so that the entire length of that chain is as strong as the next one and the one after it, so it works better together. What you don't do is leave that weakened link to just bring everybody else down. Leaving them to their own devices, not addressing their deficiencies, not trying to build them up or motivate them. You're just giving orders and expecting people to figure it out on your own. It is lazy, half-assed supervision. And that's not the way that successful companies are run. And frankly, it's not the way that workplaces full of happy employees function. Because if somebody is expected to perform at a certain level and they're not measuring up or towing the mark, I gotta believe that 9 times out of 10, a light bulb isn't just gonna fucking go off in their head and suddenly it's all gonna click and they're gonna become super awesome at what they do for you. No, because you want to catch them when they make mistakes and not be like, what the fuck are you doing? You'd be like, hey, I just gotta let you know, this didn't go to expectation. You didn't do this the way I would have liked, and here's how I think you should do it better. That is being a leader. A boss is like, well, you fucked up, so now you're in trouble. What are you, an idiot? Shit like that. They talk to you the way that, like, an emotionally abusive parent talks to a kid. Because that's the relationship power dynamic you have there. You've got someone in charge who has experience and runs the show, and somebody who's less experienced and is kind of new to this and trying to figure it out. And you're just like, what the fuck are you doing? I say that from a point of confidence because that's basically what the hell happened the entirety of my childhood with my mom. Son of a bitch! You know, and as the adage goes, a boss will tell you how to do your job. A leader will show you how to do your job. So you can be a boss or you can be a leader. And more often than not, you will find people with down-to-earth, get on the front line with the grunts type leadership will give you an entire workforce of people that are far more satisfied with the work they do, comfortable coming to you with issues, and feel more fulfilled because they have your support, so they're more confident to do what they need to do without fear of any sort of punishment for the most minor of infractions. I mean, just think of this. Today's professional sports franchises are full of Gen Zers. And what they aren't used to getting is an ass chewing. So that when you've got an old style coach who screams at the players, they fucking shut down, they don't know what to do. They can't handle that adversity because they weren't raised with it. They were fucking coddled by a society that when they did wrong would be like, oh, it's okay. You made a mistake. And maybe they showed them how to do it and maybe they didn't. What they didn't do is old fucking baby boomer style parenting where they're like, what the fuck are you doing, you idiot? You're supposed to do it like this. Or even worse, what the fuck are you doing, you idiot? And then they did it for you, and they just yelled at you the whole time, so you were too busy tuning out from the trauma that you were fucking induced into to actually learn what they were trying to show you. You got players in, let's say, baseball. You have pitching coaches, hitting coaches, base running coaches, all manner of people. They have specific jobs, and they are expected to teach you the finer points of their expertise to make you a well-rounded player. That's why you get experience working with all of them. They don't just say, get out there and hit the fucking ball.
Are you threatening me?
No, they look at your swing. They look at your stance. They try to see any sort of deficiencies in how you're holding the bat, or how your hands are placed on the end of the bat, or what you do with your feet when the pitch is coming at you. They try to address that to make you a better hitter. And then you've got your fielding coaches that teach you better ways to dive for the ball, to catch it for the out without breaking a wrist or a fucking ankle. Or they try to work with you to pay attention to your surroundings while you're chasing a fucking ball that's going towards the wall to make sure you know where the warning track is so you don't pull a Byron Buxton and French kiss the fucking wall at about 40 miles an hour. Then you've got your base running coaches that are trying to tell you how to watch the signals from the catcher, or to watch the pitcher's fucking body language, or to tell you how to lead off the right way, or which foot to lead with if you think you're going to steal a base, or how if you've got limited amount of time because it's only like a pop fly single or something, to really maximize the amount of time you have before that ball is back in play coming at the base that you're running to, and then how to slide, how to avoid the tag, things like this. These are all people who have jobs that are specifically made to make the players better. Just like if you've got somebody that runs a company, they have a job to make sure all their middle management or direct supervisors are well versed in everything they do so that they can then trickle that knowledge down to their employees and make them better. What I don't think anybody who's really good at their job does, who's in a position of power, is just be like, well, geez, they're not making their marks on their sales. Just maybe I should cut them loose. As opposed to like, they're not making their marks on their sales. Maybe I should observe their efforts and see if I can show them the ropes some. You want to improve everybody so they can be the cog that turns correctly and keeps the rest of the gears in the machine turning so the whole thing keeps moving forward as expected. But it's kind of a two-way dynamic, right? So I will say that if you apply the opposite dynamic of, let's say, a company's not doing so well, and you've got a supervisor who doesn't listen to his subordinates and just thinks, well, I'm in charge, I know what's best, it's my way or the highway. That's fucking ignorant. I worked for somebody like that when I was a correctional officer. He was an ex-military guy and a former drill sergeant, and he thought if he just barked orders and said, I like yes men, be a yes man, that he would get all the results he needed. But unfortunately, he had somebody like me who was an independent thinker, who when he said, if there's problems, let me know so we can address them, and I'd go to him with problems. And then he'd be like, fuck, there's problems. And he basically gave me an attitude like, I need to mind my own business and keep my head down and just go with the flow like he does and ignore all the shit that's going wrong that's pissing off all the other guards at my level.
Am I the only one around here who gives a shit about the role?
And it's like, dude, I know that you want this place to run smoothly, but kissing the inmates' asses and ignoring the complaints and suggestions of your line staff is not the fucking way to accomplish that goal. And it's funny that he didn't grasp this concept, being that he was a military man, because you think about the structure of the military hierarchy when we're at war, right? You've got your leaders making decisions that is based upon intel that comes from the field and the reports from the staff sergeants or the platoon leaders that are letting you know what tactics worked, what went to plan, what didn't, what they're facing that was unexpected, and what they think we need to do going forward based upon what they've observed. And then those leaders, if they're good, are going to go, holy shit, we got this, we got to change the game plan. And they're down on the board, and then they're looking at the map of where they were trying to progress their movements or their offensive or their defensive if they're kind of on the ropes. And they change in real time to win the battle. Because the goal of war is not just to show up and do a good job. It's to fucking win. And it's to inflict mass casualties so that you win handedly with as few casualties on your own side as possible. Right? Yeah, well, apparently an ex-military guy of 20-some years who was a drill sergeant and whose job it was to get these new soldiers ready couldn't fucking figure it out. And because I have this innate ability to relate everything that happens or every dynamic that I see back to what I grew up with my mom, I will do what I typically do and then point out that a lot of the ways that she tried to, quote, teach me how to be was through threats of the consequences for fucking up and intimidating me.
God, I'm so fucking tired of your shit!
I don't know if I can ever think of a time where I made a mistake where she didn't spend the whole fucking time bitching at me afterwards about, what were you thinking? Why did you do this? You're so in trouble. At no point did that build me up. All it did was make me feel shitty and resent her.
You bitch!
So if she wanted me to improve, it probably would have behooved her to stop and think, okay, what were his motivations? Were there triggers involved? It was always, why are you fighting? Well, you know what I'm fighting. People either made fun of me or my sister. Well, why are you using swear words? And I'm hearing about this. Well, unfortunately, you yell at Dad a lot, and then he gets pissed off and yells swear words back at you because you won't leave it be when he's already in trouble with you. And then I hear these new words, and they make my brain tickle, and then I use them because they're sentence enhancers. Or the best example, again, where she shits on my dreams, and instead of asking me why I think I should do that and it's a good idea, she just has to tell me how stupid and unrealistic they are and how they're not going to benefit me financially, as if having money is the only thing that fucking makes people happy, as opposed to, having jobs that are built upon your dreams or setting a goal and achieving it and then feeling that sense of accomplishment, right? Never did she sit down and break down my study habits or how the conversation went prior to the fight. She just wanted to know who said what and what I did to them, and then basically only addressed what I did to them and trying to talk to the school principal about, well, what's he done this time? It didn't seem like she ever went to bat for me, as far as I can remember, where she would be like, well, what do the other kids say? Well, why are you pissed at him for fighting? I'd be pissed off too. What do you expect out of him? When are you going to get these other kids in trouble for harassing my fucking son? See, these are the types of lessons that I learned the hard way from her lack of cohesive, in-depth parenting. I learned not to sit there and bitch at my kids for fucking up without talking to them about the steps that I would have done differently and then show them if they don't understand. Or, by example, my daughter was being bullied by some kids on a social media app before school even started this year. So what I did is I contacted the principal, and then I told him what the hell was being said. And I gave him the names of the other kids, and I'm like, put the parents in touch with me. You don't have to, but I would like you to. Give them my number and ask them to call me. Then they've been notified of the situation, and it's upon them to make the decision whether they're going to be good people or lazy fucks and just be like, well, I don't care, my kid doesn't do that. No, they did. And one mom called me, and I laid it all out for her. And she was very disappointed in her daughter. And although it eventually led to a half-assed and clearly forced apology, my child got to see what happens when a parent gets involved. When they say, what the fuck did they say? Why are they doing this? And then you attack the kids that are doing the wrong so that your kid doesn't lash back out and say other mean shit, and it just keeps volleying back and forth between them and then somehow escalates to physical violence in the hallways. Because these days, even though I think kids are too scared to fight or we don't let them fight, there seems to be an awful lot of fights because our children are seeing us be uncivilized pricks and are learning how to be uncivilized pricks themselves. So then back to the original reason for this episode. The leader that was like, well, you just gotta leave her be and hope that she figures it out. You have to acknowledge when you have somebody that is an unmolded lump of clay that's a little bit rough there. You can leave it and hope that it turns into a pretty statue, but it's not gonna unless you put some work into it. And as a supervisor, it's your job to make sure, again, every link in the chain is as strong as the one before it and after it. If you want things to run smoothly, you have to do a little bit of work and put some fucking effort into coaching these employees to make them better. Now, if they absorb the knowledge and they get better, great. Some people are hard-headed and can't handle constructive criticism and think they know best. Fuck them. That's when you can toss them by the wayside, but not just because they make some simple mistakes and are used to a different system, for example, from a job that was similar to this at another company. Show them your way of doing it. Show them the way that you would do it. Give them the expertise and the confidence to do it to your expectation. Help them help themselves. Lastly, I will say if you have somebody who is not going to get it all the way, but they've got 4/5 of it, roughly 80%, what you do is focus on their strengths. And then maybe if they're so strong in 4 out of 5 areas, it compensates for the one area that they're weak, and then they don't just fuck a bunch of shit up that causes everybody else to have more work. As much as ideally you'd like to have everybody 100% good at what they do, you're never going to get 100% out of everybody 100% of the time. So you got to just make lemons out of that lemonade. And in that case, like I stated, focus on their strengths, while addressing their deficiencies, and hopefully they'll overcompensate and it'll even out, or maybe they'll bring that deficiency up a little bit if you continue to coach them rather than just sit there behind your Mr. Burns posture like, why the fuck aren't you getting this?
Release the hounds.
Interact with the show on Twitter at What Do We Call It. That is at What Do We Call It. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/group/What Do We Call It podcast show. For the What Do We Call It podcast, I'm J-Man. And that's the end.